it's the knowing what you want, asking the right source, believing that it's possible, and then you have to take action. And, when I have these discussions, particularly with people who are centered in those Abrahamic religions, I mentioned as an example, even Noah had to build the ark. It wasn't just delivered. There had to be, it had to be some action. So I thought that was a really important stage. And I would say to people sometimes, like before I wrote the book, you can't just pray about it, you got to be about it.
My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path.
Well, hello, Linda. How are you?
I'm wonderful. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. Thank you for coming back. We're excited to talk about not only your new book that you have that's come out, which is, just to make sure I get it right, From Vision to Divine Provision, the Islamic Art of Sacred Manifestation.
Yes, you got it right.
Yeah. So share with us what got you to that place of wanting to write this new book?
I look at this book as the second part of the series.
Okay.
So the first book, Crescent Over Crossroads, that we talked about, I guess it's probably been about a year ago now,
yeah.
when we talked about Crescent Over Crossroads. That was really my journey as a African American female Muslim, navigating corporate America, navigating law, and navigating my travels around the globe. So I was really sharing with people just a lot of that personal development and me getting to that place of authenticity and feeling really comfortable with who I was. And the second book, From Vision to Divine Provision, is a little bit of deeper dive into that process of looking at, I talk about in the second book, just that doing that visioning, that inner work, the meditation, and then how that manifests into our hopes and dreams. So it is a part of the same series. I have a third book that I hope to publish in this series, and I really started working on the third book as the second book, and then I was inspired to write this book, and I put that on pause and started writing From Vision to Divine Provision.
Oh, yay.
Where do you find the energy to get it all done is one of the questions I got.
I know, I really think this book, it came through me and not from me. And so there was a lot in this book that just really flowed from how I was inspired to writing it. And when I started writing it, and then now that it's written, just the feedback that I've gotten from it, I really feel like this is something that kind of came through me. And it seems like it might have been a heavy lift, but when you're doing something that you enjoy and it's just flowing, it really wasn't energy consuming.
Yeah.
It consumed time, but not energy.
Nice. And probably that whole process goes directly to your whole process.
Yes. I really implemented the process in writing the book. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And it's a 7-step framework that you're using. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes. Okay. So I'll tell you first how I got here.
Okay.
Is that I started a women's gathering at my home, called Sisters Steadfast Saturdays.
Mm.
And one of the things and I've just purchased a home in December, and a part of my process for getting this home and getting the home that, I wanted was visualizing it and then doing serious prayers around it and what I wanted to use it for. And one of the things that I wanted to use it for is that I wanted it to be a place where people would gather. And
Mm.
so in these gatherings, somebody mentioned, about, how did you find the house? And I said, oh, I have a whole process. And so I brought out my vision board. And in the next gathering, some people said, hey, I heard you have a vision board that people were talking about. Can I see it? So I brought it out again. And then I got asked questions about what is your process? And by being asked that question, I had to think about it.
Mm.
So I stepped away from the gathering and I started to think about, like, what exactly is your process? How would you explain this to someone? Because, sometimes you're just doing it and not really looking at the steps. And I started to document it, and I was documenting it more to have a session in one of the gatherings, not to write a book. And when I started to put it down, I felt like the audience was larger than the circle that was coming to my house.
Mm.
And that got me to really start to think about the process. And so those 7 steps, it was first, the visualization, and looking at that visualization and having just some real intentions behind it and doing meditation. But in my visualization, I was taking that and I was tying it to some higher goal. That the visualization and my desires were not just about me, but it was about something higher. And so it was that process. And then the second step was asking Allah for what it was that I desired. And this may kind of distinguished it from the New Age concepts of manifestation, where the discussion is about asking the universe. And so this did not align with who I was as a Muslim, to be asking the universe for something, because my thought is, why are we asking something that's created and not asking the creator? And so that was the second process of really where that prayer was. And then it was believing in God and believing that it was possible, and really, really embracing that belief. And oftentimes, again, sometimes you have, people who say it from a religious perspective, oh, God will provide, and they think that they could just ask and God is going to provide. Some of the manifestation principles is, if you think about it long enough and change your frame of mind, all of these things, if you believe you're going to be a millionaire, the millions are going to come. And it doesn't happen like that. You need to have action. So it's the knowing what you want, asking the right source, believing that it's possible, and then you have to take action. And, when I have these discussions, particularly with people who are centered in those Abrahamic religions, I mentioned as an example, even Noah had to build the ark. It wasn't just delivered. There had to be, it had to be some action. So I thought that was a really important stage. And, and I would say to people sometimes, like before I wrote the book, you can't just pray about it. You got to be about it. It's not just about prayer. You have to have some action in it. And so I wanted to make sure I spent some time talking about that. And then it was trust. Being able to trust the process, and trust in what would come to you, and trust that what you are receiving is what you need, because sometimes we don't always get what it is that we want, but we will get what it is that we need. And so it's trusting that process. And then one of the hardest steps is patience.
Mhm.
And, because we don't always get things when we want them. We may ask for something, pray for something, and it may come 3 years down the line.
Mhm.
And it may come in a different way than how we expected it to come. So it was that patience. And then the last phase was when you receive
Mhm.
it with gratitude, because
Mhm.
gratitude multiplies blessings. And
Mhm.
so I thought about things that I've asked for in my life and thought about the stages that I went through. And then I started thinking about, real life experiences where these things came to life. And so throughout the book, I weave in personal stories as
Mhm.
to, to show like how this particular thing showed itself in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah, I really value the framework, Linda. Yeah. I'm walking through that process for myself of the last time I created a vision board, which was earlier this year. And yeah, it's so interesting. The pieces that I feel like now I can do more clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's important because like when I first talked to the women in my circle about doing a vision board, I scheduled that for like 3 months down the line
Uh-huh.
because I wanted people to do the visioning work. Because sometimes
Right.
people have these vision board parties and they're great and they're fun, but they don't come into it with kind of clear vision of what it is that they want or why they want it. Because when you do that work and think about why you want something, you may find that that's not exactly what you want, or you might can achieve that
Mhm.
through some other means. So I wanted us to do that work in terms
Mhm.
of visioning. And
Mhm.
then I also wanted us to do the work of really feeling what was possible and not to feel like an ask was too big.
Mhm.
And so we had like every session, we meet once a month, and every session we would have a different theme. And
Mhm.
so we focused on different themes. And then by the time we got to the vision board, before we started with some meditation and visualization. And then we worked on the board. And I thought that that would be a process where, what you were putting on the board was more representative of what your true desires were, and not as you're flipping through the magazine, you see, this great vacation spot. And so you stick that on the board, or you see a really great house, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I want that,
Mhm.
uh, so yeah, so it really is doing the vision board with a lot of intention. And I have
Mhm.
a chapter in the book that deals with that and kind of the steps and the templates to doing vision boards.
Yeah.
And I
Nice.
know when I was on your last show, one of your listeners sent you an
Mhm.
email and
Yeah.
said that she was particularly interested in the whole vision board process.
Yes.
So I hope she's listening again.
I'm sure she is.
Nice. Mhm.
I'm sure she is. Well, and we'll send her the link directly too. So
Good, good.
yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too. There was something that you said a few minutes ago, Linda, and I don't remember. You didn't say it this way. This is how it popped up in my head, which was to be clear what you're really asking for, because it may come into your life. And are you really ready for that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's important because I talk about, like in my first book, and I think this was, I'm not sure which book that I read it in. It might have been Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm not sure, but anyway,
Sure.
it was. something that said you spend your life climbing the corporate ladder only to find out that it was leaning against the wrong building.
Mm.
And and I felt that to some extent
Mm,
when I looked at my own life and just all the things that I did, and the schools and applying myself and the type of jobs that I went after to get to a certain place in
mhm.
my career, and then deciding this is not what I want.
Right.
And so yeah, sometimes we do that. We think we want something, and we put a lot of energy into it, and invest a lot of years. And sometimes we invest so many years that we stay because we feel like we're already in it. We already have so much invested in it. So it is important to really know what it is that you want and why you want it,
Mhm,
and not to say, okay, I'm going to look at this great house and a magazine and cut it out and put it on my board. Because, like, when I started thinking about what kind of home I wanted, I thought about how do I want to feel in the house?
mhm,
Um, what do I want to feel when I wake up in the morning? How do I want to experience it? How do I want other people to experience it? What are the things that I want to do in the house? And that gave me a real clear picture about what kind of house I wanted, how much space, what kind of floor plan, all of that came into play so that
mhm,
I didn't end up with what I thought was my dream house,
mhm,
and it didn't function the way that I wanted it to function. And that's why being really clear about you
Mm.
know about what you want in your life. It's not about saying I want to be a millionaire. What do you want to do with the million?
mhm,
And you can accomplish those same things with
mhm.
a quarter of the
Right.
money. It
Mm,
may not take a million for
mhm,
you to do and experience the things that you want to experience. So it's more about looking at what it is that you want, and
Mm.
then being open to how that may come to you. Because you can say,
mhm.
you know what, I want to be able to travel the world. Well, you make it an opportunity to travel the world where it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds fantastic. Uh-huh. I agree. I agree. Wow.
Have you ever felt confused or overwhelmed in relationships? Theresa and I have come up with a free mini course that we think will really help you out with a lot of the common relationship experiences so that you can improve your communication skills with all of the people in your life and really make a change for the better.
Yeah, we really believe that everybody deserves the opportunity to learn healthy relationship skills so that we can get through life having a good, healthy relationship experience. So click the link, put your email in, you'll get the PDF, spend a few hours working on it, and please let us know what your experience is. We know it will benefit you in some way. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
I thought that one was pretty good.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Check, check.
So interesting. It really is. My process around this vision board, what I did is I did prepare, for it. And then instead of looking through magazines for pictures, which is what I had done in the past, I used an AI generator, picture generator,
Oh, okay.
and I typed in, what it was that I was wanting to create visually. And that was helpful for me. And so, yeah,
Nice,
that
nice.
added a little bit more depth and a little bit more, I don't know, intentionality or focus for me
Yes.
than in the past. So, yeah, but even as you're talking, I'm like, I can like feel the energy of my board differently than I
Hmm.
did even before we started talking. So thank you
Yeah.
for that. Mm.
Yeah, and I didn't do the AI generated images, but I did some magazines, but I also sort out images like
Mm.
online. And
Okay. Okay.
then I printed them out. I know some people like to do vision boards like on Canva or um, what's Pinterest, like they'll
Oh.
do vision boards there.
Hmm.
I I personally think that it's important to use more senses,
Hmm.
the touching, the cutting, the pasting, the arranging, and then also have that physical board because when it's something online, how often are you gonna look at it?
Yeah.
And it just seems a little bit too distant for me.
Hmm.
So when we did ours, I encouraged everyone to do, to actually do boards. And
Hmm.
one person, she was traveling that came and she had a great idea. And I'm good, and I'm going to definitely use this as I do retreats with people,
Uh-huh.
is that she did like boards that were much smaller squares. And she
Mm.
did several of them. And
Hmm.
so, and I didn't even know. And I was like, where's your board? And she's like, right here. And she said, I'm traveling. So she actually did hers on different smaller boards. And
Mm.
like she took each concept and did a
Mm.
board on each one. And I thought that
Mm.
that was, and I thought that was great because I was trying to think, like, how are you going to do this when people travel to you? And they got
Mhm.
to take these vision boards back. And I was like, maybe
Right.
we'll do a vision stroll. I was thinking of all these different things, but I'm like, oh, that's great. Put them in
Yeah.
squares. And then they can also, use them as individual ones, or when they get home, actually then create put them together as onto a bigger board. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Something else I did this year, which was interesting, was I hung it above my bed behind me. And when I'm sitting up in bed and I look in the mirror, I can see it as
Oh,
well.
nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice,
Yeah.
nice.
It is really nice. And I hadn't had it so visually, accessible. It was always, in my room somewhere, but not quite like that. And it's been nice. Yeah.
Yeah, nice, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a great process. So I can't wait to dig in even more as we will do our next one as life continues to evolve. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You mentioned here, you call this part of the spiritual intention part is vision board with Taqwa. Did I
Mhm.
mispronounce that horribly?
No, 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 you do well.
What um, I want to hear more about what that means because I'm not familiar with the word. But
Okay.
also in this, the process is discerning personal desire versus divine intention. And
Yes.
I somehow you're assimilating those two, right? And I want to know more about that piece of this process, or maybe you're not. Maybe it is completely just the divine intention piece for you. So can you speak to that?
Okay. So when I talk about the difference between just like that personal desire and that divine intention, it's really again thinking about, why do you want this
Okay.
and making sure that it is aligned with being pleasing to Allah. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's because sometimes we want things that are not pleasing to God. And then so that's one aspect of it is making sure it aligns with who you say you are. So from a religious perspective, whether you say, I'm Muslim, I'm Christian, I'm Catholic, I'm Jewish, whatever that is, that your desires should align with who you say you are.
Mhm.
And then the other part of that in terms of one is that alignment with who you say you are, but the other part of it is looking at it as something bigger than yourself.
Mm.
So what impact does this desire have, will it have on your family relationships? What impact does it have on your community? What
Mm.
impact does it has on the society as a whole? And then the other part of it is one of the things that when we ask as Muslims, when we ask for guidance, we ask whether or not this is going to be something that's good for us in this world, good for our religion, and good for us in the next world.
Mm.
So it's looking at all of those things from a, how is it aligning? How's it going to impact, those around me in the larger society, and how is this going to be good for me in the next world? So that's the alignment I'm talking about with the intentions. And oftentimes when people will do that work, they will adjust what it is that they desire and start thinking about that bigger picture. You don't want to have these desires gain it and then you have, terrible relationships with your children.
Right.
So it's that alignment. And then the taqwa it's about that trust. And I think that that's what you were asking about.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's about having that trust. Now, making the distinction because they're related but different. So you have believing, and then you have trust. So believing is more believing that it can be done. Trust is believing that it will be done. And so it's also, having that trust and that it will be done. And some of us can't get past that it can be done. Some of us get past that it can be done, but we don't think it's going to be done for us. And so and did I answer your question?
You did. And how
Okay.
how do you help people get to that space? Because that's part of the teaching process is getting to the it will be done.
Right.
So if people are struggling, what's your advice?
Well, I do this from a religious perspective.
Yes.
So, and I do say, I'm making reference to quotes in the Quran and the Hadith, which is the book of the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. But I'm talking to people really from a religious perspective, and I say this guidance that I'm suggesting is for those that do come from a God-centered perspective, because there are people that don't believe in God, or they don't believe in any supreme being. They may be, their religious basis does not have a deity. And so when I'm talking about it from this framework, the way of helping people get there is to really start to quote what's in the holy book. And I've had Christians that have read it and say, the Bible says the same thing. And so my discussion is, this is a promise from God. So, in the Bible, it says, ask and you shall receive. And they're both, the Bible and the Quran talks about that gratitude multiplies blessings. And so it's having that discussion and understanding this is not a promise that I'm making to you. This is a promise that God made to you, that when certain things occur, that there is a response. If you're praying with the right intentions and a good heart, and you're coming to God with clean hands, and I've had some people, and I talk about this concept, and Walker, I'm sure you can relate to this as from a legal concept, but I think that the same concept applies in a religious context. Is that, like, from a legal standpoint, it's a doctrine of clean hands. You don't come to the court asking for relief when your hands are dirty.
Mm.
And it's the same thing when you are asking God for something. You should be working on having your life in order.
Right.
You know, that you can't have a life of all of this wrongdoing, um, making money by means that harm other people, that don't align with with your religious practices, and then you're asking for, these gifts from God. So the work is really about taking a holistic approach of what's in your heart, what's in your actions, and what do you intend to do with those blessings when you receive them. And that when you can start to put all of those elements in place, you will see things start to unfold. And I give examples in terms of my own life, when I've experienced it. And I also, talk about that I didn't always do everything right. And so I have those stories too. Yeah. I have those stories when I didn't have, when the intentions were not aligned. And I talk about, I say it, it was a light discussion in my book, but it was something that was real. And that was, I wanted a particular car, and my desire to get the car had nothing to do with status. I wanted the comfort of the car. I wanted the reliability of the car. I drive a lot, and I wanted a car that I was going to feel safe on the road, that I wasn't going to feel the road, and that it was going to be a reliable car. And that was my intention. I've never really been focused on a car for status. When I got out of law school, I was driving a Toyota hatchback manual with no AC and refused to get a new car. One of the partners in the firm said, "You are making us look bad because people are going to think we're not paying you enough if you're still driving around in that car." And I'm like, "You're not. You want me to drive a nice car? Give me a company car. But right now I'm in my car with the window rolled down." So cars have never been a big thing for me. So now I got this car, and I find myself walking with just a little bit more pride as I'm walking towards the car, like, oh, this is a nice car. And I'm thinking, yeah, people want to see me driving, getting into this nice car. So I'm at the masjid, and I get into the car, and I know that I have in my head that I'm getting into a nice car. I pull out of the parking space, slam the car into a column. Now, the column was there when I got into the car. And maybe if I wasn't so worried about how I was walking towards my car, I would have remembered the column. So I hit the column, and I said, I didn't even get upset. I said, "That's a reminder to you that your ego was never supposed to be tied to this car." And so now I'm telling a friend of mine this story, and she laughed, and she was like, "And you got your lesson at the masjid after Juma," right? And so we laughed about it. Now, I drove around with this dent on my car for about 2 months, just to remind me that my ego was never supposed to be in the car.
Yes.
And so I felt like I got an immediate reminder with that, so that having some pride lasted for a very short time, because I had only had the car a few weeks. I'd only had the car a few weeks, and I just couldn't get mad about it. I laughed about it. And so I think, it's important to really think about like why you want something. And then when you get it, remember why you wanted it.
Yes.
Because we'll say, "Oh yeah, if I had this, if I had money, I would help people out." Then you get the money, and then you start making excuses of of why you can't give.
Mhm.
And so that's the kind of work that I do with people to help them get there and understand that, it's okay to ask, and it's okay to ask big as long as you're asking for the right reasons and you are working towards keeping your life in order and being grateful when those blessings come.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Integrity. What?
It's great. I just love it. The whole process. And it's bigger than a vision board. I mean,
Mhm.
this is a
It's
big vision board. It's
Mhm.
really beautiful. And I just,
Yeah,
yeah.
it it is bigger. And then,
Yeah.
the third part of the book, when I say it's, also tied to what I do,
Mhm.
and in terms of the compliance and the ethics work, is that I I did the third part of the book to look at the seasons of life,
Okay.
because it is very easy to to stay on track when everything is going well. The
Mm.
hard part is when you have to really make those tough decisions, and tough decisions when you get these dilemmas between, oh, I'm being asked to do something that really doesn't align with who I am, but if I don't, I feel like I'm going to lose my job.
Mm.
Or you get an offer for something and there's, it's a lot of money involved for a client or a job, and then you have to, you have to make those decisions. Or you're going through some kind of crisis in your life, and you're going through a death, you're going through a divorce, and now how do you keep these daily practices during that time? So I do spend some time in the third part of the book just dealing with some of those real life situations, because we're going to go through different seasons in our life. We're going to have crisis, and it's in that time that this process is even more important. It's
Mm.
not a time to toss it to the side. It really is a time to implement it. And I wanted to make sure I was spending time with that, because I've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations in my life.
Mhm.
And it can be really difficult during that time to say, okay, I'm going to still do my meditation, to be able to take time to do that meditation. And doing that meditation is really what uh, helped me through those helped me through those crises, and understanding, and being able to put into play those principles around prayer, and believing, that you can ask for that relief, because
Mm.
asking the prayers and the intention goes far beyond material things. It's looking for, certain family structures and happiness and peace and relief from grief and all of those things. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to make sure I was addressing that, and that this is not just something to implement when you want to pray for a new career, or vacations and things like that, all which is good as well. But there's so many other aspects of our lives that we want to grow in. We
Mhm.
want to grow in our happiness and our mental health, and our physical health. And so I addressed that in the third part of the book, and I found that I was really drawing from the things that I do with organizations, helping
Mhm.
organizations turn turn situations around, and helping organizations understand how to make ethical business
Mm.
decisions, and how to guide their employees in making those ethical decisions. And that all of that came into play as I started thinking about, okay, now that we've done all of this, we've done the foundational work, I've gone through all of the principles, and now I need to deal with what people, when people really have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, when everything is not perfect, when you don't have that, quiet environment, when you got, a household of six people and the kids got to get out the door, and lunches have to be made. See, I'm not in that position. So for me, it's, these things become easy. For me to get up, I don't have kids that I got to get out the door to go to, to go to school, and I'm not juggling those things. Like, I've had periods in my life where I've had to juggle, and I was a caregiver and things like that, but I'm not there now. But I had to call on all of that and say, how did you get through those difficult times? And so that's what I share in the third part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're processing lots, aren't you?
It's just inspiring. It just is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a beautiful work. And just I'm sitting here thinking about that, you saying this is flowing through me. And it's because you, with each of the parts of the book that you're revealing as we talk, I'm just like, gosh, how did that come to you? Because it's really broad, and it's this model for living. So yeah.
And I reached out to you for this book because I thought it was just so aligned with just your podcast and the concept of my inner knowing. And this is also an Islamic concept as well, referred to as fitra, and that's that kind of inner knowing that that we have, that divine knowing, what knowing, right from wrong, and even when everyone else is telling you to do something, and you just know that you know what's right, something that, yeah, that's not right, it doesn't feel right. And that is a lot that I felt like I tapped into that a lot in writing this book. And I say in this book, and I say in the Crescent Over Crossroads, that I'm not a scholar. I'm not an Islamic scholar. And so I am, this is being written from a lived experience standpoint. And I'm also tapping into what I know, and I feel like I tap into that because I spend a lot of time in silence. I spend that time in meditation. I've been doing meditation for well over 20 years, probably at least 25 years or so. And I would say that it probably started a lot earlier than that, because even when I was a kid, I would be up in my room quiet, and my father would holler upstairs, "What are you doing up there? Come downstairs!" Like, because I was just up there, and I didn't have the television on. Like, he was like, "What is that girl doing in that room by herself?" but but I would spend time quiet. I would spend time, and I would be writing. I would be writing poetry, and as I started to get older, probably at least about 25 years ago, I started like a formal process of meditation. And I don't leave my house without doing it, whether it's 5 minutes or 1 hour. But my thinking has always been, to center myself in my world before I go out into the world. Because when you go out into the world, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot where people are, people give a lot of unsolicited advice, and, you get opinions about everything. And I'm like, I didn't ask you. I don't know why you thought you needed to advise me on this, but you get a lot of, you get a lot of unsolicited advice. Then you just get a lot of things of just looking at what other people are doing and what's happening. And I thought, it's really important to have, to be quiet. And in that quietness, this book emerged. And it really was that inner knowing that that brought this out and brought out these stages. And for me to feel comfortable writing it in the manner that I wrote it, knowing that I am not a scholar, but I'm still giving this advice, and I feel comfortable giving the advice because of that concept of fitra, that what we know to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One of the things, Linda, that you had written to us about was doing this work. And to me, it's all connected, but without abandoning your soul.
Yeah.
So when you think about that concept, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I think a lot of times in some of the work that we do, sometimes we have to be other than ourselves. There's, and then there's groups of people who find that they have to do this more than others. And, but I think oftentimes we all get challenged with that of, working in a profession where we feel like this is what we have to do, and it doesn't necessarily align with who we are. And when I say that, I'm thinking of that you can have the things that you want in your life without abandoning who you are. You may have to have it, and it may come to you in a different way, but it needs to be that trust that it will come to you. And so you don't have to work at that particular job. You don't have to change yourself to be accepted by a group of people. I've done presentations with people and they've asked me this question, like when I've done work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, where I've said to people, they may not be your people. What you need to do is find your people. And oftentimes we don't think that there's a group of people where we can have all of that and not lose who we are. And and I've had that fear myself. And as I started to get more comfortable with who I was, I found my people. And initially I thought, maybe I might have trouble finding clients, but I don't. Because I think clients actually appreciate my authenticity. I don't look like them. I don't dress like them. But that's okay because I'm delivering. And I think people appreciate that. And I can't remember if I think I said it in the first book, in the Crescent Over Crossroads book, is that I rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not. And sometimes we have such a desire to be accepted and loved that the person that they're loving is not even you.
Right.
And so that's what I meant by that concept of believing that you can have your dreams without giving up your soul.
Yeah. Oh, we just recorded an episode that came out on Friday called The Freedom of Being Disliked.
I have to listen to that.
Ooh, it's such work.
And it's good work. And you have to get you really have to get comfortable with that, because some people really have trouble with that. But for me, also from a religious perspective, my first goal is to please God.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to sacrifice that
Yeah.
in order to please someone else, because
Mm-hmm.
these relationships are very temporary.
Yeah.
Even if someone is, and I say temporary in the sense that this all is temporary. So even when you say, oh yeah, this person and I have been friends for 40 years, but one of you are going to leave the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually someone is going to pass on. And
Yeah.
so, these relationships are very temporary in this world. And then when we start thinking about from a work perspective, oftentimes we think they can't do without us.
Mm-hmm.
They can. The
Yeah.
organization is going to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And when you work yourself to a point where you get sick, you might get sent flowers,
Mm-hmm.
but they will go on. And so
Mm-hmm.
this whole concept of pleasing people that are in and that are very temporary, it's it's something that a lot of people have to really kind of think about and work through. So I definitely want to listen to that podcast.
Well, I wish I'd heard you say that 30 years ago when I was a first year associate at a law firm.
Hey, I wish I knew it when I was
Yeah.
a first year.
You hear me?
It took
Oh,
me,
yeah.
it took me a while. It took me a while to get there, as well. And even like when I tried to, when I initially kind of moved away from the practice of law and I was talking to younger people, it was really still difficult for them to even understand what I was saying,
Yeah.
because it's something that you have to experience, and
Right.
then you have to make that call. And oftentimes it's difficult for people to make the call because they've already built a lifestyle
Right.
around it.
Right.
And they have a spouse, the kids are in private school, and they're they've invested all of this, and to switch gears oftentimes mean that if you switch to another career, you're not coming in at the same level, because now
Yeah.
you're new in that career. So a lot of people have go through that, and I went through that as well,
Sure.
of feeling like I I needed to please. Probably not as much as some of my colleagues, some of my peers. A lot of people used to think that I had a lot of courage, but I did in comparison to some. But still, there was that of wanting to make sure you did what you needed to do, and in order to fit in and keep your job.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I think they call that phenomena where we have increased our lifestyle to match or to exceed what we're making golden handcuffs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
and and it's true, because it is very difficult.
Mm,
And I worked for large firms in New York, and nobody
mm,
else pays you like that.
mm,
The money we were making as first year lawyers never should have been making.
mm.
We didn't know anything, but I mean, that's the reality. I mean, you got through the bar, but if you were a litigator, you didn't know how to file a complaint.
Mm,
You didn't know what a courthouse was. And
mhm,
so there was there was a lot of money being made for,
mhm,
and you knew very little.
mhm,
And you would go and do your research, and then it was going to the library, library in the firm, and doing all your research, and writing your memo and giving it to the partners and getting it back with more red comments on it than your pride could handle. It's
Yeah.
like what, but you so we got paid a lot of money
mhm,
for that wasn't commensurate with what we knew.
mm,
And you couldn't go anywhere else and make that money. So it was very hard
Yeah.
for a lot of my peers that when we were working in those in those firms. Like one of my friends, she was like, I can't do this. And she just really started saving and paying off her student loans and just
Mhm.
living, like a very, very modest life. Because
Mhm.
she said, that's the only way I'm going to be able to, that's the only way I'm going to be able to walk away from this.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. I feel like I was fortunate in my 20s. I worked at a big accounting firm and I was struggling. I wasn't getting paid what I was capable of doing because I didn't have the right degree. My degree was in philosophy, not accounting. And see, so even though I performed exceptionally well, they wouldn't pay me because I didn't have the right degree title. And I remember struggling to leave, and one of my managers said, Teresa, you need to find what feels right for you. Someday, none of us will be here.
hmm,
And there was so much permission that he gave me that really influenced a lot of my life. But there was a part of me that just wanted to stay because I thought if they'd stay, maybe they'd choose me and see me and value me. But that
wow.
wasn't their lens, that wasn't their goal. And that was hard to reconcile, but I did. And it was helpful, a helpful lesson.
And that was a great lesson. And particularly like in the law firms. I don't, I've been out of it for so long, so I don't know how they function now. But when I was in law firms, they had basically a up or out policy.
Mm,
um if you didn't they didn't have permanent associates. So, and it was going to be a small percentage of people that would make partner.
mm,
So you really are looking at, and I don't know what that percentage is, probably no more than 10%. So you got 90% of the people that weren't going to make it. And that
mm.
was just the natural structure of things, that
Wow.
when you got to, 8 years, and if you weren't considered to be being a partner, you might as well just leave, because you were
Mm,
going to be gone. And then, and they start thinking about, like, you start thinking about who's on a partnership track. And
mhm,
so you would find yourself anyway at that 8 year point saying, I have to leave
mm,
because I'm not on track for partner. So that put a lot more pressure on people to conform and to
mm.
try to fit in, because
Wow.
it really was the survival of the fittest, so to speak.
Mhm,
And that was just, that was just the reality. And when you worked in those large firms, you could say, okay, I'm going to go and start my own practice. But you did get really used to all of the resources
mm.
of a large firm, and
Mhm.
you had to be able to make that shift
Wow.
from the resources of those firms, and then maybe you can get something in-house. So people really went through those crises when they got to that, 7, 8, 9 years out of school,
Mhm,
because so few people got on that partnership track. And then I'm talking about those large firms, New York firms. So, that might not have been the case in some other environments, but that was the world that I came up in.
yeah.
That you really, if you wanted to stay, um, get on that partnership track,
Mhm,
you had to really do whatever you needed to do to fit in, and make a whole lot of sacrifices. Sacrifices of your time, sacrifices of time you had to spend, with family, attend functions that you didn't enjoy.
mhm, mhm,
Because they were always functions and dinners and firm outings and all of those things, and you had to go and you had to smile and act like you enjoyed it, even if you didn't.
Mhm. That sounds sad.
So I am happy to be where I am now
Yes.
and
Yeah.
to love what I'm doing
Nice.
and
Mm.
love the people that I'm doing it with, and
Yeah.
anything that I could do to help others get to this place where they can realize that they can have, their dreams fulfilled and
Mhm.
still be themselves,
Mhm.
is a wonderful thing. So me writing this book
Mhm.
is um it's very um, important for me to be able to do that and to be able to tell the stories that I'm telling in the book. And I'm hoping that it is something that people can pick up and that they can relate to and
Mm.
be able to take these principles, no matter what faith they come from, to be able to take these principles and understand the concepts of aligning what you want with your values and believing that it's possible, and having, taking those concerted efforts, those actions, and allowing things to happen in the time frame, that it's supposed to happen. And then
Mhm.
to be able to show that gratitude when
Mhm.
all those blessings come your way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yay.
Hmm.
Thank you,
Hmm.
Linda. It was so good to see you again. And we look forward to the third book.
Yes. As soon as it comes, I'll be reaching out saying, hey,
That's wonderful.
it's
Do it.
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything that you want to leave with our listeners as we finish up tonight?
One, just to let people know how they can reach me.
Mhm.
And the book, From Vision to Divine Provision, is available on Amazon. And you can reach out to me directly at engage at with Linda Howard. And those are all of my social media handles, the YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. So please do reach out to me. When you read the book, reach out to me. I do want to get feedback. It
Mhm.
is it's a process, it's a journey, and I want to be able to learn from other
Mhm.
people's experience, like what worked well for them, what didn't work well for them, where they think, hey, I would love to have some more information on this. So, maybe there's a second edition that would incorporate some of your listeners' stories. So I
Yeah.
would love to hear from others. And, the last thing I will say is dream big and believe that
Mm.
it can happen, because it can.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I believe that. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking we could do a process with our groups of people around Linda's vision board process.
Sure.
And then we can give you feedback.
Yes, I would love to get that feedback. I also do retreats, and,
Mhm.
and I'm open to joining other people's retreats. Like if,
Mhm.
you're doing a retreat, or, anyone's doing a retreat out there, to reach out to me, and I would love to participate in that as well.
Yeah, that's so
Wonderful.
nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We love retreats too, Linda.
Who knows? Maybe I'll come to Oregon.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. We're having our first Oregon retreat in 2 weeks.
I know, I saw
Oh,
that. I saw
so
that. And I was like,
exciting.
oh, that's great. Right. You're doing one in December as well, right?
Yeah, we're doing one in December. That will be here in Missouri. And that's
Okay.
for, yeah, mental health professionals. And then we'll be working on what our retreat series looks like next year, dates and places. But we are so excited. The house is should be completely done this week. And
The
so
one in Oregon?
the one in
Yeah.
Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It
yeah.
looked great. It looked great. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited. Yay.
Yeah. It's
Beautiful space. Whew.
it is. The energy's great.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Good, good, good.
Okay. Well, so
All
good
right.
to see you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Likewise, my
Yeah.
pleasure. And I look
Yeah.
forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Us too, Linda.
Okay. All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.